So apparently, I just don't learn. Because I came back, but he said he's got people to help get the stuff down, as you can see. So we're back here with the trailer this time. Let's see what we can do. Does this work? Nope. Dang. We would have to do the climb up. But that's fine. I'm gonna try and get everything with wire in there. Alright, that went pretty well. Still gotta strap it down, but there's actually a significant pile of wire. Yeah! I got a YouTube channel.
Oh, cool, cool.
Alright. You know what, that's not too heckin' bad this time around. Just spend a little time cleaning that stuff up to separate it by type. But there was also a whole bunch of these attached, which I was just throwing out, but they're surprisingly heavy. And I think that's because every single one of those is actually number 2 copper. So because they don't look that hard to take apart, I'm actually going to take these out of the stash. Like, these are about, you know, £1 each. So, you know, if I can get $4.50 for taking out 4 little Robertson screws, I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm gonna get the strap down and we'll get out of here. Probably better off to sort this out here. Huh. All right, let's see what we got. All right, so $200 is not that bad, but I think the important part here is that the tin was only $50, and $150 was all of that wire. So it's a good thing we grabbed all that and made it nice. But yeah, a trailer and a truck. Okay, the truck wasn't that full. What I'm trying to say is we got to go back and see if they've got any more. All right, so back at the apartment, we did find more material. There was plenty of the same sitting there. However, I left before I grabbed all of it. I'm not really sure how to, I make a habit of, I basically don't ever swear on this channel, but it would be difficult to express how I felt in that moment without doing so. The folks working there, they hadn't put anything down. It was still just me going up to grab everything, which I guess is fine because they didn't know if I was going to get there or not. That's not the reason I was all pissy. However, I went up, there was a bunch of stuff, it was still a big mess, whatever. And I aimed to get the big pieces, which in this case was this big old furnace chunk with a blower. It wouldn't fit out, so they needed to help break it down, which they did, you know, sort of, halfway. And then I started to move some of the smaller pieces out and toss them into the bin while they were doing that. But then, you know, they only broke it down halfway, and when they noticed I was moving stuff out and tossing into the dumpster, they just stopped any of that and went back to doing what they were doing, ripping off drywall and throwing it down into the dumpster. So, you know, whether that was going to be any trouble for me to sort out, completely irrelevant. But that wasn't really, you know, I talked to their boss about how I would just come and pick the stuff up. But it wasn't worth it for me to grab, you know, it wasn't worth it for me to go up and do all the work, but I would come and take it away if they did. Well, anyway, they seemed to be quite happy that I would do all the work. So I don't know if they missed the memo or if they just didn't care, but none of that was really my... Look here. See here? This is where a motor was. These don't just fall off easily. It's all bent up. After I was down loading a few pieces up, I noticed that. And I looked up and I asked them, did you guys take the motor off of this? Where did it go? And the guy gave me this stupid ass, playing dumb expression. Like, oh gee, I don't know. Like how you don't know. Look, the motor is only going to be worth about $5, right? This has nothing to do with the value of the motor. But it was at this moment I realized these guys not only do not value my time or appreciate how I'm helping, but rather than help me, they are taking the time to specifically pick off any sort of bits of value before I get to it. $25 from that tin. Now, I want to be clear. It was not about the money. Again, well, it was kind of about the money. That motor was maybe $5. But I was already feeling kind of unsure, kind of dubious about that job. Like, it already felt a little bit like I was being taken advantage of. But the fact that they would take the time to remove that tiny piece and stash it away just to make sure I didn't get it was like, it was more insulting than anything. So I just said, screw you guys. I finished loading up what I already had and I left. I don't think they're going to be particularly heartbroken not having me there to, slightly reduce the amount of garbage going into the bin, because it's a massive job and they're going to be chewing through numbers of bins. And I sent the boss man a message that was perhaps a little more curt than strictly necessary. But I'm just not interested in working with anybody who's demonstrating a willingness to make a special effort to pick off any little good parts. Should have just followed my gut. I knew from the get-go that one felt kind of dumb. Now, some of you may wonder how I justify my little temper tantrum after pulling $150 worth of wire out of the bin there. And to you I say, fair enough, yes. However, I personally think all that wire going into that bin was more of a result of ignorance than kindness. Because anybody with a meaningful amount of experience with scrap metal would know that that motor was only going to be like $5. Who knows? Maybe they've got a whole pile of motors from all the furnaces coming out of there. Maybe they got like 50 of them. But the point here, I assessed the situation, recognized it as not worth my time to participate in, and we are moving on. Hello? What's all this? Someone's made little bundles of broken junk. How strange and delightful. Not really sure why they built these piles, but there's plenty of space for them in the garbage. Nice. Hold on just a moment. What is that? Why, we found ourselves a beautiful chonk. Boss. Are these just rubber? Yeah, those are just tires. Over there we got a little heater. I see nothing else noteworthy down in there. What do we got? That is a big chunk of foam. What is that? Oh. It's a... Hold the frick on. That is a whole... Ew. Yogurt and not some kind of... Oh. But if this is fully functional, then we've got ourselves a score. Matic hand towel dispenser. Yeah, why not? Somebody probably buy that from us. Cool. Well, I think I see something for us over there, but first... a little bit of dirt here. Ow, ow. Stop it. What is this even for? Like, I think this is for a Jeep. Whatever, doesn't matter. It's for scrap. Dirty aluminium. And then, oh, it's not what I thought it was. Dang it, I forgot to bring the... Whatever. I thought I saw a water heater, but I did not. Yeah, still need to bring a bottle bin. See one piece of aluminum and it's in there deep. Although, this piece of foam... It smells kind of bad, unfortunately, but it is something I need right now for a project at home. It's a bit gross, but we can wash it. Ugh. Nope, not today. Gonna check some new bins, new to us bins. That's a cute little thing. Probably nothing else right now. What the heck? That is a lot of rolls of strang. What industry uses that much strang? Holy cow. That is a dramatic amount of strang. That one says recycling only, which means this one should have all the good stuff. Oh, there's somebody over there. I don't know if we hop in while these guys are... Whole lot of snow happening. How about this? Yeah, I've been noticing a bunch of empty ones. What is that? Kind of a hose. A little bit of metal in the end, but just a hose. Yeah, I think this would be a fine place to check. A little earlier in the week. Hello? This papery stuff? Alright. What is that? Oh, I see a little bit of metal in there. Not much, but at this point... we are just taking what we can find. Got some wires. Avoiding the coax. Because nobody buys it from me. Not a huge score, but it's not nothing. I'm gonna be so for real with you right now. The conditions are becoming untenable this evening for dumpster diving. We may call it before the truck is full, I think. Whew, the wind's picking up. Alright. I don't see nothing. Have ourselves a little look-see. Nope. Hey, what's that? Ooh. Score. Maybe we even take the motor out of that. And then again, maybe not. Nothing. Swoop. Well, you know, I think that might be it for this run. It's getting pretty hard to drive and see. So here we are. That's how we did. We did not bring it in yet. No big deal. What I'm going to do is just load this up with a bunch of the other junk that I've got in here that needs to go. Nice piece of foam. And this thing, I tested it out. Doesn't work. Piece of garbage. Not a surprise we did find it in the garbage. Yeah, apologies for having such a grump fest. It's not my preferred behavior, but look, these are adventures in scrap metal, and I like sharing all of them, whether they are great, fantastic finds, which honestly, the amount of aluminum in here, it's not that bad of a find, or having to make a tough call to remove ourselves from a certain job site that does not feel like it's actually turning out favorably. But I'm just grateful to be able to share them all with you, so thank you for joining me, and I hope you're staying warm and staying dry, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. So until then, leave it better than you found it. Keep doing the thing.